Hey YouTube, it's Casual Brews here with my Seahawks post-game review slash just general Seahawks talk. I've been kind of had a mini sort of hiatus from making videos for like a week or so. Just kind of got busy with some stuff, so I didn't make a recap of the last game, but really, it would have basically been a carbon copy of this one. Just a rough 2-game stretch for the Hawks. Kind of saw this one coming after what I saw in the Green Bay game. On the offensive side of the ball was just so disgusting that, for the first time all year, I picked against the Seahawks against the spread. Just didn't see any promising signs in the Green Bay game, other than the defense playing well, but just the offense so terrible that I just kind of thought more of the same would happen. Unfortunately, I was right. Still rooting for them, obviously, like I always have, but just didn't have a good feeling about this game against the Cardinals. Just bad. The only silver lining is it's better to have the season effectively ended now than in another embarrassing effort in the wild card game. So, yeah, season's basically done. Everyone's saying it. It's pretty easy to see the writing on the wall now. First and foremost, Wilson came back too early. I've been a big fan of him even since before the draft. I loved watching him at Wisconsin. Didn't really see him at NC State much because I hadn't really followed college football a lot at that point, but kind of got into college. The first year I kind of got into college football was Wilson's year at Wisconsin, and he, to my eye test, was the best quarterback that I'd watched. Just some of the throws he was making, he had already started throwing those moon balls and this and that, and he just looked incredible. And then, obviously, Seahawks signed Matt Flynn. Kind of seemed like that was their answer at quarterback. And then they drafted Russell Wilson, and there was a lot of, mixed, from maybe people who hadn't watched him in college, a lot of, skepticism about that pick. Why pick a quarterback the third round? You just signed Matt Flynn, this and that. But I liked the pick because I'd watched him, and I was like, holy shit. I just got into college football, and he was one guy I really liked watching, and we just drafted him. I'm like, sweet. Kind of got off to a slow start, obviously, based on the way the team was at that point, very run-heavy defense and that. He didn't really have to do much early in his career. But then, obviously, the last few years, he had been MVP, close to an MVP caliber quarterback. Super accurate. The deep ball, obviously, as good as any in the league. And then this year, it's just been, I don't know. He got off to a good start, and then the injury, even kind of a little bit before the injury, he was kind of slipping a bit. And then, I don't know, these last couple games, it's tough to really, you lose 17-0. It's tough to really put all the blame on Wilson, but you just have to wonder if ego trumped the right decision for the football team. Even before this injury, Russ has been all about recovery and training and billion hours a day, this and that, and you almost wonder a little bit if his ego trying to prove he's better than science, better than the doctor, that he can get back in half the time that it was prescribed he'd get back in. And first game back at Lambeau Field, cold, wet, snow, this and that, it was not the right time, and it clearly showed. Finger injuries, one of the worst to have, especially in the middle finger for a quarterback, because it plays with the touch you can put on the ball, and it was clearly evident. He was zipping balls by guys. He didn't seem to quite have the touch on his throws, and obviously in the Arizona game too. Kind of beating a dead horse here, because a lot of people have said, would we have maybe had a better chance to win with Geno Smith? I have to think probably. Maybe not in the Green Bay game, but at least in this Arizona game, it was close. They were practically giving us the game. Missed 7 points worth of kicks, 2 field goals and an extra point, all within very reasonable range. When a team just gives you 7 points like that in a close divisional game, you cannot lose that game. But Wilson is clearly not ready to play. I just think in a normal circumstance, most other quarterbacks would have taken the requisite time. I just feel like his ego got the best of him, and he wanted to show the world that I'm Russell Wilson. I drink recovery water and I recovery bubbles or whatever, and I'm the world's greatest healer, as Pete Carroll said, and this and that, and it's just frustrating, man. Like, I'm a big Wilson fan. I've always been a big supporter, but I'm a Seahawks fan first. I've been a Seahawks fan since way before Russell Wilson, and he hurt the team by coming back as early as he did. Because even though Geno Smith, yeah, he's a backup for a reason, I saw enough promising things a little bit in the Jacksonville and New Orleans games, especially in the Jaguars game. Yeah, granted, it's the Jaguars, but the Jaguars sure made Josh Allen look bad. They've been feisty, at least on defense. Geno Smith carved them up. Stayed within the scheme. He just seemed to read the middle of the field, the short intermediate passing game a little better. He obviously doesn't have nearly the deep ball capability Wilson does, but that doesn't even matter because teams have completely taken away the deep ball. The odd time Wilson threw it, it was in complete double coverage. Granted, DK still should have grabbed that one, the deep one down the middle, but he was double covered the entire time. It never used to be the case. When Wilson first started unloading those deep balls, they were in single coverage. Now, teams never, ever, ever give us that opportunity now because they know that Wilson seems to struggle reading the short and intermediate in the middle of the field, where teams like the Rams and the 49ers constantly have success. You saw the Rams 49ers game on Monday Night Football. All the Niners did was just throw in the middle of the field 10, 15-yard passes all game long. Rams couldn't stop it. That's not something the Seahawks can do. And Geno Smith was kind of starting to do that a little bit. He seemed to just see that part of the field better than Russ. And with a lot of teams running zone defenses now, that part of the field is often open. It's a tough pass for a quarterback to make, especially one with a smaller frame like Wilson. Maybe he's not seeing. That's always been a thing with short quarterbacks. Now, quarterback height hasn't exactly been as prevalent as it has in the past, but that is one thing people point to, is that a shorter quarterback can't quite see over the lineman in that and make those throws. Now, can you scheme Russell to get out of the pocket more and make those throws that way? Possibly. That's a coaching, mishap there that they haven't looked into that. Maybe they will, but it's kind of too little too late at this point. You're 3-7. The only prayer you have at maybe making the playoffs is if you run the table, which, their schedule is favorable, but can you really expect this team to win, another game with the Rams? They got another one with the Niners, obviously, and Cardinals. Outside of that, the schedule is pretty favorable, but I haven't seen anything on film and from my eyes that tell me they will. So it'll be whatever they do now is too little too late. But between Russ being, dare I say, selfish, coming back early, putting his own agenda over the team's success, I'm not saying they would have necessarily won with Geno, but I feel like he's currently doing things that Russell isn't. And in this day and age, not to say Russell can't learn how to do it. I'm not going to go as far as to say, trade Russ, like a lot of people are saying. But he could figure it out, because I feel like he has done it at times in his career. He has been able to work the middle of the field, but overall, defenses have just shifted in a way where, and you saw it with the Chiefs. You saw when the Chiefs really struggled offensively. They still kind of are, but teams just took away their deep ball. And they're playing cover 2, both safeties high, playing a little bit off coverage, giving that short intermediate openings, but they're tricky passes to make. They're, dare I say, maybe even harder than deep ball sometimes, because a deep ball, if you got a good, speedy, really good receiver, he can just run by a guy like DK and Lockett can do. You kind of got to just put it in the vicinity and it'll make the play. These short, intermediate, middle of the field routes are so timing based, bang, bang. Like, you got to really get the ball at the perfect time, thread the needle between two defenders sometimes in a zone coverage, and Russ just can't seem to do that. Geno Smith was at least doing it a little bit better. And like I said, Russ can still figure that out. I'm confident in that, but this season it'll be too little too late. And they may choose to move on from him. They may choose to move on from Pete, John Schneider, all of them. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that. I still believe in Russ, but he's not showing me. Even going back into last season, it was the same kind of thing. The team sort of figured out how to defend us, and the offense fell off a cliff last year too. So the sample size has gotten alarmingly big when it comes to our offensive struggles, and maybe it's time for a change. I don't know. I've seen a couple quarterbacks in college that are pretty solid. It just sucks we don't have a first round pick anyway. So the only possible option, if you trade Russ, do you get a first round pick, a good first round pick this year to draft a quarterback? I don't know. Do you? Like, would a team really trade a first for? I mean, they'd be silly not to trade a first round pick for the Russell Wilson we've seen overall in his career. Be like, the borderline MVP candidate. But the Russell Wilson of the last year-ish got off to a great start last year, and then that's kind of when defenses changed it up, played that deeper coverage, and then he just couldn't adjust. I wouldn't trade a first round pick for that. For his career in general, of course, multiple first round picks probably, but he's got a couple injuries now. He's over 30. If you can get a first round pick for him, maybe you entertain it. It would be sad though. I'd be sad, as a Russell Wilson fan. I'd be sad to see him go, but these quarterbacks are coming in earlier than ever and making an impact now, so I don't know. I really like Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. He's probably going to go mid first round at worst. I don't know. It's tough sledding, but I kind of hit my low with this team after the Green Bay game. It's part of why I didn't really feel like making a video, honestly, because it was like, what I'm just going to say, doom and gloom. Like, at least if the game was close, I'd have some things to maybe say, but it was just such a miserable game. Like, there was no positives at all, besides the defense. The defense is still playing well, and people are going to, look at the Colt McCoy throwing for, like, putting up an elite stat line and think the defense was terrible, but in reality, they didn't have a great game, obviously, but when you're kept on the field all the time, and it's demoralizing too. Sometimes you get a stop, and your offense just gives them the ball right back. It's got to be demoralizing, and you're hoping to catch your breath for a couple minutes, and your offense goes 3 and out, and it's right back on the field. It's not sustainable. Like, I've seen stats. We are on pace to have the worst time of possession in, like, the Super Bowl era or something like that. Like, we are getting almost, like, without the Jaguars game, where I think we probably won in time of possession, but like every other game this year, we've been getting destroyed in time of possession, like almost 2-1 sometimes. It's ridiculous. Like, no defense is going to hold up to that. No defense can hold up. When we do have some offensive success, it's still because of, like, we make a deep pass, like a 40-yard bomb to Lockett off of busted coverage. But we are incapable of sustaining drives, long drives. Like Arizona just dinked and dunked us to death, threw in the middle of the field, threw screens, this and that. Just, it's not sustainable. Like, even if we were to figure out a way to win a couple games, it's going to be the same thing. We'll still get destroyed in time of possession, and our defense will get tired. If our defense is on the field more and they're tired, they're more susceptible to getting injured. We can't afford any injuries to the defense because they're already kind of on, kind of strung together by string at this point too. So, I don't know. Season's effectively over. They're still technically alive, but even with a favorable schedule outside the division, we got Houston, we got Detroit. It's tough to really see a way they win out at this point. Just with what I'm seeing with my eyes, there's no way. So, the only thing I really look forward to here is to maybe see some improvements made that can, if the band does stay together. If Russell Wilson stays, if Pete Carroll stays, if you can at least maybe pull some things together, maybe somehow finish like 7-10, 8-9, whatever, show some good signs. The defense stays playing pretty well. They figure out at least how to offensively negate, what the defense is doing to them. If they figure out how to use the middle of the field, I don't know. Maybe. No, I don't think Pete has the balls to do it to Russ, but if he decides to sit Russ against Washington on Monday night and say, you're not healthy yet, Gino go in there and Gino plays well. That could be interesting. Yeah, and then see what they do from there. I don't know. I feel like Pete would go before Russ because he is obviously the oldest coach in the NFL, and maybe it's something to do with him because our offenses kind of look the same with Shane Waldron, with Schottenheimer, and even before that. So yeah, at the point you wonder, is it the head coach? Because Waldron was supposed to have all these innovative things to bring to the offense, and it looks exactly the same as it did before. So that's makes you wonder, how much control does he really have? I don't know. So, and on the flip side, you can say, well, does he have all these creative plays, but is he limited by what his quarterback is capable of doing right now? I don't know. There's been clips out there, in the all 22 videos with like the sky cam, and many instances, especially ones that end in interceptions or end in third down incompletions, where Russ has guys wide open in the middle of the field, especially. That's the common theme. Middle of the field, 10, 15 yards down, guys are wide open. Jimmy Garoppolo's hitting those guys. Tom Brady is hitting those guys. A lot of quarterbacks, a lot of the good quarterbacks. I know what Jimmy G, I don't think is a good quarterback, but he at least seems to. He runs the scheme that the teams are giving us. Middle of the fields, this and that, screen game, this and that. Like Russell Wilson's missing, not really missing, but he's choosing to not check the ball down to a running back who's like already 5 yards up the field with no defender within 5 yards of him. He's not checking the ball down to try to bomb it 50 yards downfield on third down. So, I don't know. Like, maybe Waldron's limited by Pete and Russ, or one and the other. I don't know. But yeah. I honestly wish at this point they would just, if they lose another couple games, I wish they would just shut Russell down. Especially, like, this finger's not going to fully heal by playing right now. So, I don't know. Then at least you can see what you have in Gino. I'm not saying he's probably going to be the answer, but maybe Russ watching him do what he does more, open his eyes a bit, right? Oh, I can make these checkdowns work sometimes. These quick little passes to the tight end over the middle of the field work. Anyway, not a lot to hope for. It's just at this point, you look for good trends, you look for good things leading into next year. Or if it stays a disaster and they finish 5-12, then maybe a clean house. And at this point, I'm open to anything because it's pretty bad right now.